Welcome back to the FTTM Podcast, your guide to getting the right product to the market at the right time. This week, we are going to focus on FTTM planning, how to execute to achieve right time.
It is great to be back.
Yeah.
And this is the topic I've really been waiting to get into. We're opening up the Lateral Works research on what I call the engine room of fast time to market. We're talking about planning.
I have to be honest, when I hear the word planning in a corporate setting, I have this visceral negative reaction. I think of windowless rooms, Gantt charts that take 3 weeks to build.
Oh, yeah.
And just that sinking feeling that you're just documenting your own demise.
You mean the death march?
Exactly, the death march. You spend a month building a schedule with 5,000 lines. You print it out on this huge piece of paper, stick it on the wall.
And 3 days later, it's useless.
It's expensive wallpaper because everything's already changed.
That is the universal experience, I think.
Yeah.
And the Lateral Works research calls that out right away. They classify that kind of traditional planning as either wishful thinking, where you just hope it works out, or, and this is the one I see most, reporting.
Reporting? What do you mean by that?
I mean, you aren't actually driving the project. You're just reporting the news. And it's usually bad news.
So you're watching the car crash in slow motion and just writing down the coordinates of the wreckage.
That's a terrifyingly accurate way to put it, yes.
Okay. So the promise here with FTTM planning is that it flips that whole script. It's about steering the car, not just watching the crash.
Precisely. It turns the schedule from this static thing on a wall into a dynamic tool to actually buy back time. But, and I have to warn you, and you listening, the methodology is extremely counterintuitive.
Oh, I believe it.
It breaks almost every rule they teach you in, PMP certification courses.
I got that feeling reading the note. There was one phrase that jumped out immediately, and I think it's going to annoy a lot of the perfectionists listening. It says, "It is better to be roughly right than exactly wrong."
It's a provocative statement, isn't it?
It is. I mean, play devil's advocate with me. If I'm a program manager, isn't accuracy my job? If I tell my VP I'm roughly right about the launch, I might get fired.
Right. It feels wrong. But it comes down to the physics of uncertainty. On a manufacturing line, you can be exactly right because you've done the same task a million times.
Yeah.
But in product development, you're literally inventing the future. You have no idea what's going to happen on a Tuesday 6 months from now.
Because the prototype isn't built, the code won't compile, there's a chip shortage, all of that.
Exactly. So those traditional schedules that try to predict every detail 6 months out, they are exactly wrong. They give you this false sense of precision.
It's a hallucination. The spreadsheet looks full, but it's not real.
It's a total hallucination. So FTTM teams, they just accept that. They embrace the chaos. Which brings us to the first big concept, macro to micro planning.
Okay, walk us through that. Because you still need a plan.
Yep.
You can't just wing it.
No, absolutely not. It's a very rigorous structure. But you separate it into two views. First, there's the macro plan. Think of this as the architectural view, the forest, not the trees.
So very high level. How many tasks are we talking?
Maybe 50 for the whole program. It just proves the logic holds together, that the major pieces can fit. But you do not clutter it with the daily stuff for month 5.
Okay, so that's the map of the forest. What's next?
Then you have micro planning. And this is where you get super detailed. But, and this is the critical constraint, you only microplan for the immediate future.
How immediate?
Like the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. That's your rolling wave.
The next few weeks, seriously.
That's it. And you break that window down into really short interval tasks.
Yeah.
Things that take maybe 1 to 5 days to complete.
I see the aha moment. You don't waste time arguing about the subtasks for a milestone in December when it's only January.
Why would you?
Because by the time you get to December, reality will have completely changed anyway.
It's exactly right. It's about ROI for your planning effort. Focus the energy on the work that's happening now, where you can actually make a difference.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But now we have to get to the part of the research that I think is the most controversial. I literally wrote "this is insane" in my notes.
I think I know what's coming.
It's the strategy that says when you start planning, you should explicitly ignore resource constraints.
Yep, that's the one. That's the hurdle most people trip over.
It sounds like setting yourself up for failure. If I have 2 engineers, but I build a plan that needs 10, isn't that just a fantasy?
If you're just reporting, yes.
Wow.
But let's flip it. Let's do it the traditional way. You sit down and you say, well, Bob is only available half the time, so this 10-day task will actually take 20 days.
I've done that 100 times. It feels responsible. It feels accurate.
But what did you just do?
I just accepted a 10-day delay.
You baked the delay into the schedule on day one. Before you've even started, you let the constraints dictate the timeline.
So the FT team approach is to ask, how fast could this possibly get done if we weren't hamstrung?
Precisely. You build what Lateral Works calls the competitive schedule first. You figure out the fastest path to market, the right time. And, inevitably, that date is going to be way earlier than what your current resources can support.
And that difference, that's the gap.
That's the gap, the difference between the target date and the predicted date.
But isn't a gap just a nice way of saying we're screwed?
It is. But here's the psychological shift. And this is so important. The gap is good.
How can being late possibly be good?
It creates before-the-fact urgency. In most projects, teams hide this stuff. They pad their estimates. They hope they'll catch up later.
And no one knows there's a problem until it's too late. The death march.
Exactly. But by identifying the gap on day one, you're admitting you're late before you start.
So you're manufacturing a crisis while you still have time to do something about it.
You can't fix a problem you don't acknowledge. And once the gap is on the table, the whole conversation changes from, I guess we'll be late, to, okay, we have a 4-week gap. How do we close it?
It changes the whole dynamic with management, too. You can show them specifically to hit this date, we need to close this gap. That means we need a contractor here or to pull Bob off that other project.
Right. It aligns the pain. It's a real negotiation.
Okay, so we've got our macro plan. We've identified the gap. We're ready to go. But a plan made on Monday is dead by Tuesday. A server crashes, someone gets sick.
And that's where most teams fail. They treat the plan as done. FTTM teams treat it as a living, breathing thing. This brings us to refresh planning.
This isn't just a weekly status email, right, where everyone says, I'm working on it.
God, no, I'm working on it. It's the most useless information ever. Refresh planning is a rigorous, high-speed rhythm, usually weekly, sometimes daily. And it has 3 very specific steps.
Okay, break them down.
Step 1 is update. You have to input reality. And this requires a culture of, radical honesty. The research uses the phrase, let the truth set you free.
Which is easier said than done. In a lot of companies, if you say you didn't finish, you get yelled at.
Which is why those companies are slow. In an FTTM culture, hiding is the sin. Being late is just data. So you enter the real status. If you're 0% done, you put 0%.
And once you put that truth in, the finish date probably slips.
Almost always. Which leads directly to step 2, pull in. The team doesn't just look at the slip and shrug. They immediately go into recovery mode. They ask, okay, we lost 3 days. Where can we get them back?
Oh, so it's a constant battle for time. You lose a day, you fight to win it back.
It's relentless. And then step 3 is breakdown. You look at the upcoming macro plan and you break it down into those micro tasks we talked about. You're constantly feeding the engine.
It sounds intense.
It's high energy, but it should be fast. The research really emphasizes this is not a blame session. It's a tactical huddle, a 30-minute meeting focused purely on problem solving.
I love that. It shifts it from why did you fail to how do we fix it?
That is the only question that matters.
So let's get into the weeds a bit. The research highlights some really cool tactical concepts. One that stood out to me was peeling the onion.
Yes. This is so important. It addresses a really common trap. Everyone learns to focus on the critical path, right? Let's call it CP1.
Sure. If CP1 slips, the whole project slips. So you stare at it all day.
But that's dangerous. Because while you're staring at CP1, there's a second critical path, CP2, lurking, just a few days behind it.
It's a sneak attack.
It is a sneak attack. If you successfully pull in CP1 by a week, guess what? CP2 might be the new problem. Or if you ignore CP2 and it slips, it becomes CP1.
So peeling the onion is about looking at the deeper layers.
Exactly. You peel back CP1 to see the gap between it and CP2. If that gap is closing, you know trouble is coming. You have to manage the top, say, 3 to 5 critical paths to really be safe.
That's like whack-a-mole. You hit one, another one pops up.
It is. And to visualize that whole board, they suggest a tool called the wiggle chart.
I love that name. It seems like something from a kid's art class, but it's actually really sophisticated.
It's very descriptive. You just plot the predicted finish date over time. So each week, you plot what date the schedule says you'll launch.
And there's a stock market analogy here, right?
There is. A stock price doesn't go in a straight line. It wiggles up and down. A healthy project should do the same thing.
Because reality is messy.
Totally. 1 week you slip a day, the next week you pull in 2 days, the line wiggles, but you can see the overall trend.
But the research warns about the flat line.
Yes. The flat line is the real danger signal. If I look at a wiggle chart and the finish date hasn't moved a single day in 6 weeks, I get very nervous.
Because it means someone's hiding something.
Or they're asleep. In complex projects, it's impossible for everything to go perfectly to plan for that long. A flat line usually means people are absorbing slips, hoping they can make it up later.
So if I see a flat line, I shouldn't be happy. I should be worried.
You should be terrified. A wiggle means the team is actually engaging with reality.
Okay, so we've covered the philosophy, the strategy, the tactics. But let's be real, you can't manage all this in a spreadsheet.
You can try, but you'll go crazy. You'll spend all your time managing cells instead of the project.
Which is where we have to talk about how Lateral Works operationalizes all this. They developed a specific tool called Fast Project.
Right, and this is key for anyone who actually wants to do this. Fast Project is an add-in to Microsoft Project.
Which is smart because basically every company already has Microsoft Project.
Exactly, but Project out of the box is just a calculator. Fast Project is what actually implements all these FTTM best practices. It automates the advanced critical path analysis. It automates that peeling the onion visualization.
And the refresh planning.
It builds specific workflows for refresh planning and for pull-in. It makes updating the schedule with reality super fast, which is critical. And of course, it generates the wiggle charts.
But the research makes a point here that I found really interesting. It says it's not actually about the software. You can't just install it and become fast.
No, and that is maybe the most important takeaway of all. The tool is just the enabler. The real value is that it gets the team together.
It aligns everyone on the mission.
Yes. The tool helps you build the schedule around customer-focused milestones, which naturally forces cross-functional behavior. You can't build a valid schedule in a silo. You need engineering, marketing, manufacturing, everyone in the room.
So the schedule itself isn't the point. It's the artifact of the conversation.
That is the perfect way to say it. The schedule is simply the outcome of a team discussion. The software just captures that agreement.
It reminds me of that famous Eisenhower quote from the research.
Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable.
Exactly. The actual file might change 100 times, but the process of planning, the discussion, the alignment, staring at the gap together, that's what saves you.
It creates a shared brain. When the whole team understands the gap and sees the wiggle chart, they own the timeline. It stops being management's date. It becomes our plan.
Which brings us full circle to the culture. The idea that bad news early is good news.
That's the heartbeat of FTTM. If you use these tools just to beat people up, it will fail. People will hide the truth, you'll get a flatline wiggle chart, and then you'll crash at the end.
You have to make it safe to admit you're slipping.
You have to reward it. Because if you tell me you're slipping today, we can help you recover. If I find out in 2 months, we are both dead in the water.
So let's land this plane. For someone listening who's in the middle of a death march right now, what's the first step?
The first step is to stop trying to write a perfect novel of a schedule. Zoom out, build that macro view, and then specifically look for the gap. Admit you are late today.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip it off, and then build a rhythm. Get the team together every week, look the truth in the eye, and ask one question over and over. How do we go faster?
And don't be afraid of the wiggle.
Embrace the wiggle. A wiggle means you're alive.
This has been absolutely fascinating. It really demystifies how the best teams operate. It's not magic. It's just a very disciplined, honest way of looking at time.
It's about removing the delusion from the process. Once you do that, you can actually start to execute.
Well, that is all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. Make sure to tune in next week where we will dive deeper into key practices of FTTM teams.
See you then.